Hi, I'm Nick, and today I'll be talking to you about the evolution of virtual technology. I will also be talking about how it's been influenced in today's society, as well as a brief history of how it came to be. The concept of virtual reality first began with Charles Wheatstone and his stereoscope. His research demonstrated that when the user looked through the stereoscope, their brain would process that the two images from each eye would combine into a single object of 3 dimensions when viewed through the stereoscope. Viewing these images would give the user a sense of depth and immersion with the picture. The concept of 2 images being displayed as one 3-dimensional image would be modified into a more advanced state of immersion as technology advanced. In 1962, Morton Hayleg built a prototype of a machine that would encompass more than just eyesight that was dubbed the Sensorama. His machine would allow users to be fully immersed in the 6 short films that he had made specifically for the machine at the time with the senses of sight, sound, smell, and touch. In 1968, as the technology was experimented with even further, Ivan Sutherland and his student Bob Sproul created the first VR head-mounted display called the Sword of Damocles. This head-mounted display was connected to a computer and not a camera like the Sensorama was. However, it was very bulky and too heavy for any user to wear it comfortably, and the graphics generated by the computer were just primitive wireframe objects. Future iterations of the VR headset would continue to be modified over time. The user's comfort with the VR headset was a main concern, as well as some of the main graphical advancements for the VR headset and just the overall immersion into the VR environment for the user. The word VR didn't even get coined as a term until 1987 when a man named Jaron Lanier, who was the founder of a visual programming lab, developed a range of VR gear such as the Data Glove and the iPhone. And no, it's not this iPhone, it's this iPhone. Now, a lot of people believe that virtual reality is merely a form of entertainment used in movies and video games. However, it does have a lot of practical uses. One such would be using virtual reality for simulations. Virtual reality can portray simulations of real-life events and jobs in order to benefit those in training without the risks of doing it in real life. The most common forms of these are for flight simulations used in the Air Force, as well as simulations for those in the medical field. The very first flight simulators were very primitive and didn't even include any basis on virtual reality at all. They mostly just included the pilot sitting in a pedestal which sat atop a swinging cockpit, and the pilot would have to gain hold of the swinging cockpit to control various flight altitudes. Later versions of the simulation would be tweaked during World War I and II when the pilots would have to use more advanced flight mechanics such as spatial orientation and instruments that control flight path. After World War II, simulators got introduced into civil aviation, where the first airliner simulator was manufactured by Curtiss Wright for Pan American Airways, where the cockpit was copied to the very last detail and the pilot would have to control airliner mechanics. After the 1960s, movement in the simulations was introduced and the pilot would experience their actions firsthand in the program, and as time went on, computer-generated graphics were introduced, and those are the primary form of simulated flight programs that get used today. Now, to jump back a bit here, virtual simulations are also beneficial to those who are in the medical field, especially those who have to work with surgical procedures. Surgeons will be able to practice on simulated patients so they can have the knowledge of what to do beforehand without making mistakes when they go into the real deal. This is beneficial because, as I said before with flight sims, this takes away all the risk of performing the action in real life and provides a much more relaxed and focused environment for the user, and so they can learn on how to do it in real time. So you may be thinking, the technology that goes behind this virtual reality concept seems like a pretty useful and good thing, and that it doesn't really have too many downsides to it. Well, some of the main issues with this ever-growing technology is that it is just that, an ever-growing technology. It still faces many problems that up-and-coming technologies in today's society have to deal with. For example, a lot of the technology that goes behind this virtual reality concept can be very expensive, as well as it keeps going and improving over time, there's constantly going to be a higher learning curve. There's going to be new things that are going to have to be taught with this sort of thing in order to fully grasp the concept. However, even with these setbacks, there will always be room for improvement for the development of virtual reality in the future, and it can only get more beneficial as time goes on and new technology gets introduced. The future of virtual reality could very well be the basis of the next computing platform, as well as beneficial for the technology industry. And even though it will take time to get good footing in the future of today's society, it will ultimately have a big impact. So in conclusion, the concept of virtual reality has had a big part in the future of the entertainment industry with innovations for video games and movies, as well as its more practical uses for flight and medical simulations. It will be able to benefit how people get trained into these careers that can require a very precise and expert level knowledge of the task at hand, along with giving them a safer environment without having the risks. It will be able to grow as time goes on and will be a huge part into the technology industry of the future. Overall, thanks for listening, and I hope you can take away something that I've talked to you about today.